Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levi, and today we're going to talk about Dana White's Contender Series Week 7. And my friends, it's going on this Tuesday night live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got 10 prospects fighting for a UFC contract. This is another interesting week. Listen, there's 2 fights where I'm very confident that all 4 of those fighters belong in the UFC. And then there's another 3 fights where I'm kind of like, I'm not so sure. So without further ado, my friends, let's get right down to business. Because kicking off this card in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Rafael, Tobias, he's 13-1, taking on Jair de Oliveira, who's 6-0. Currently, they got it Rafael, Tobias, minus 350. The comeback on Jair de Oliveira is plus 285. So Rafael is only 22. Jair is 29. Rafael is 6'2". Jair is 5'9". We don't know what their reaches are. And the reason I put so much emphasis on him being 5'9" is because this is 205, my friends. This guy is a heavyweight drop into 205. He's 5'9". He's never fought at 205 before. His entire career has been at heavyweight. And this should be one hell of a fight to kick off the card. Super, super exciting matchup because on one side with Rafael Tobias, you got the young big boy coming out of Shoot to Box. Usually Shoot to Box is known for producing really solid, smaller fighters, but they do have a couple bigger fighters on their roster. You know, my boy Marco Tulio, but then they also got this kid, Rafael Tobias, and I'd wager that Rafael Tobias is probably one of Marco Tulio's main training partners. Now, if I had to also wager, I'd say that Marco Tulio definitely gets the better of Tobias in the practice room, but that's neither here nor there. Now, it's actually Tobias. I take that back. Now, as far as Jair is concerned, you know, his nickname is Mamute. So Jair, like I said, he's 5'9". This guy's like a little tree stump. He's like a little fire hydrant. He's a little refrigerator. He throws big. Let's take a look at this guy's highlight reel. So already you see that physique. You're like, man, how's this going to translate, especially dropping to 205? Well, here's the thing. Here's what I do know will translate. If that 4-ounce glove connects on your chin, there's a chance you could be hitting the deck. And then you've also see, you know, the big guy mixing some takedowns. Look at that. Look at that little body lock takedown right there, man. So he's got some stuff. Nice head kick. Man, he knocked that dude, the you-know-what, out with the head kick. They had to bring out the flashlight. They had to bring out the smelling salts. They had to bring out the stretcher. So he's a very, very dangerous guy. It's just that we don't know much about how he does when fights get extended. We don't know how he does against good competition. And most importantly, we don't know how he does at 205 pounds. Now, his opponent, Rafael Tobias, like I said, he trains out of Shoot to Box. He's the young guy at 205. This guy's only 22 years old. So a lot of these highlights you're seeing, he was like 20 at the time. And look, he's a well-rounded guy. The only thing is sometimes he gets a little bit carried away and he starts to square his stance a bit. And that's where you got to look out for a big counter from Jair de Oliveira. But that being said, with Rafael being the much longer man here, if he can keep this at distance, use that jab, mixing his combinations, and then a nice level change with some takedowns, I think he might have a huge advantage on the mat here. It's just that we don't know much about Jair. But what we do know is that historically speaking, if you're a 5'9" heavyweight or light heavyweight, I mean, it's probably not going to pan out long term. Like, you have to be a serious exception to be that short in, you know, at these heavy weight classes. So, of course, Jair has a chance to win by knockout. Tobias has been knocked out before, but I think most likely what's going to happen is that Tobias is going to be able to keep this fight long, pick him apart, have more volume, and then when it's time to mix in the takedowns, that's where I think there's going to be a big level difference. Because it's like when you see a 5'9" guy who's like 250 pounds, I'm curious what he's going to weigh after rehydration. If he's flat on his back, it's going to be like life alert. Help, I've fallen and can't get up. But while they're on the feet, I definitely got to give the volume advantage to Tobias. It's just what you got to look out for is that Tobias sometimes gets a little carried away. He gets excited. He's only 22 years old and he squares up that stance. De Oliveira swings big. De Oliveira swings so big that sometimes he gets off balance while he's swinging his bombs. And also, a lot of us aren't used to seeing 5'9" guys winning via head kick knockout, let alone a heavyweight. So I'm very curious to see what he looks like on the scales Monday and how he performs at his new weight class on Tuesday. But at this time, I just have more answers on the Tobias side, even though I don't exactly know how his UFC career is going to pan out. And I definitely think his boy Marco Tulio is way more talented than him. That doesn't matter here. As far as Tobias and De Oliveira, I think most likely Rafael Tobias is going to come out here and defeat Jair De Oliveira on Tuesday night. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Javier Reyes. He's 21-5, taking on Justice Torres, who's 12-3. Currently, they got it Javier Reyes -190. The comeback on Justice Torres is +165. Javier is 31. Justice is 27. Javier is 5'7". Justice is 5'8". But it's Javier that's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage at 73 inches of reach. So, man, this should be a scrap between two exciting Latin American warriors. You know, with Reyes, this is a dude with extensive experience. I mean, y'all saw that 21-5 record. He's been through the ups. He's been through the downs. He's gotten grinded out in fights. He's gotten knocked dead, but he's also submitted and knocked out his fair share of opponents. Like, this is a dude who's truly paid his dues. And here's your chance, kid. You win against Torres, you're in the UFC. So he finally made it to this point. One note I got to kind of bring up is that initially Reyes was supposed to fight this Brazilian prospect, Icaro Brito. And I can say confidently that Brito was going to be a big favorite over Reyes. So Reyes was the B-side in the initial matchup. Then, you know, Brito couldn't make it to the fight. I think it was like a visa issue. So they hit up Robbie the Promise Ring. You know, that dude pulled out the fight after a week. He realized, you know, he doesn't belong here. So then they hit up Justice Torres, the former Fury champion. So I think this is a very well-matched fight. I think this is a way better matchup than the Robbie Ring fight, but maybe not, you know, as one-sided as the Icaro Brito fight was going to be, right? So let's talk about it. So with this kid, Javier Reyes, like I mentioned, tons of experience, and he's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he's a very scrappy individual. You know, this is a guy that has 17 finishes on his record. He's opportunistic. He's enthusiastic. And if you're not quite experienced enough for a guy like Javier, he's going to take you out. Now here it's him getting taken out by Larry Douglas, who's in the UFC currently. Like I mentioned, Javier's fought some real people outside the UFC. He's also done his fair share of can crushing, but when you put a can in front of him, he treats the can accordingly. And that is so important to me. So again, the way I would describe Javier Reyes is just a scrappy Latin warrior that likes to push the pace, that likes to get into a brawl, and likes to have consistently fun fights, whether it's standing, whether it's on the mat. I really like this guy. You know, someone that's in the UFC currently that he kind of reminds me of is this dude, Chris Padilla, right? Like kind of a bit of a journeyman, but you still have to be on a certain level to beat him. That's kind of how I'd look at Javier Reyes. Now, on the other side with Justice Torres, I think he's a very talented guy, and I think he's got a lot of potential. I'm just curious if he's ready right now. You know, with Justice Torres, he's a southpaw, and I feel like his finished product can actually look like a mini Daniel Rodriguez. Like, you know, he likes to throw his hands from that southpaw stance. I do kind of wish he had a bit more volume, but he's a very relaxed guy. He doesn't like to, you know, push the issue that much, but he likes to let the fight kind of ease naturally, kind of grow. He likes things to happen naturally is what I'm trying to say here, right? He doesn't really push the issue from the jump, but you start to slow down on him, similar to Reyes, and he will go ahead and tee off on you. I've also seen some very nice takedowns from Torres, as well as some decent submission attempts. So the guy definitely is very skilled. He also comes out of that camp in Texas with the Josh Vans, with Alden Correa, you know, training under Daniel Pineda. So he's surrounded by the right people, and there is a lot to like about Justice Torres. My issue with Justice Torres is that sometimes, and not sometimes, but a lot of the time, he's like losing these fights against jobbers until he wins. Like, let's talk about his last loss against Cameron Graves. So he gets walked down by a 13-7 guy. He loses his Fury belt to a literal journeyman. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, I just see it on Tapology, and I'm thinking to myself, like, hey, you know, this happens, you know, no big deal. It happens to the best of us. Tons of guys have to taste defeat and whatnot. But then you look a little deeper into it, And, because I was trying to make excuses for the guy, the commentators were like, hey, this doesn't look like Justice Torres. Like, what's going on, man? This looks like an off night. So I was like, you know what? No big deal. It was an off night. And let me mention, he didn't just lose to this 13-7 guy. He got 50-45 by a jobber. Okay, then his very next fight, he fights some 500 guy. And that guy, so like I said, I thought the Cameron Graves fight, hey, that must have been, an off night. This guy's probably way better than that, right? Then his very next fight, he fights like this 500 jobber, and that jobber is literally taking down Justice Torres at will until, he finally gasses out, because that's what jobbers do. And then Justice was able to get that finish. But even in these finishes, man, I'm kind of like, I talk about it, how like, I want to know how you handle these cans. Look at how Malcolm Wellmaker handles his cans. Look at how Baysanger Susurkayev handles his cans. And then look at how Justice Torres handles his cans. Does that seem to you like a guy that's ready for the UFC right now? Look, I think he's talented, and I think he's going to be ready one day. I'm just not convinced he's ready right now. Now, I want to give him big credit for something. So in that fight I was talking about, where he got, taken down multiple times against the 7-7 jobber, on one of his sprawls, he actually straight up hit the dude with like a WWE move. It was like a DDP pile driver. He like fucking picks him up and spikes him on his head. Dude, he had me laughing so hard with that. I thought that was so badass. And it reminded me of this UFC fight between Alan Belcher and Patrick Cote, where Alan Belcher did the same thing to Patrick Cote, just straight up spiked him on his head. So that was a lot of fun to watch. But then his very next fight, I'm talking about Justice Torres, he fights a bit of a better opponent, not quite a 7-7 guy like the fight before, not quite a 13-7 guy like the fight before that. He fights a little bit better of an opponent, but still, kind of a can. And that dude was also taking down Justice Torres easily. I'm like, oh my God, bro. So it wasn't just a one-time thing against Cameron Graves. This is like, either this guy's lazy as hell, or it must be a lazy thing, because it's like when he actually lets his hands go, or when he actually lets his takedowns go, you can tell that this guy does have skills in all departments, all areas. It's just like, why do you have to lose the first round every single fight to like not good opponents? And like, if you give this kid Reyes an inch, he will take a mile. Reyes is nothing special. I see Reyes probably going like 0-3 in the UFC. You know what I mean? And I actually think that Torres has a brighter future. The issue is, I don't think Torres is ready right now. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Now, I got one bone to pick, and I got to go after Tapology for a second. Listen, I love Tapology. You love Tapology. That's how we look at our fighters' records. But Tapology have been on one lately, ever since they launched that new ranking system they have, which, listen, man, I think it's important to have your own rankings, but oh my God, I got so many problems and so many bones to pick with the Tapology rankings. I mean, we can start off with Brandon Royval being ranked ahead of Josh Van. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it was a controversial decision or some early stoppage. Like, Josh Van clearly beat Brandon Royval, and he's somehow ranked behind Royval. Well, y'all want to hear another funny one? Tapology have this dude Reyes ranked as the #1 pound for pound North American fighter. Hold on. Sorry. I need to wipe my tears. It's so funny because there's a dude named Makate who literally beat Reyes one fight ago, and Reyes is ranked ahead of him. Tapology, what are y'all doing, man? Get your shit together. That being said, although I completely disagree with Tapology ranking this guy the #1 pound for pound fighter in North America, I think it's a complete joke, just like their entire ranking system is a joke. And not to mention, fuck those Tapology ads too, man. Tapology ads will be the death of me. Man, I love Tapology, but damn, they got to fix some things. But even with that said, my issues with Reyes is that, he backs up with his chin in the air and his hands are down and he's sloppy. And Torres has better hands than Reyes. And on paper, I bet Torres probably has better wrestling than Reyes too. It's just like, is Torres going to actually let his hands go? Like, Torres, can we maybe start fighting, before round 2? You know what I mean? Like, if Torres actually lives up to his potential, I think he's got a great chance for the upset. But based off the tape, Torres just seems too green. He seems like he's figuring out who he is, whereas Reyes knows damn well who he is. So although I can't get behind no -190 Reyes, it's probably a dog or pass situation at these odds. As a pure pick, I'm going to go with Javier Reyes to come out here and defeat Justice Torres. Next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Sofia Montenegro, she's 6-1, taking on Jeisla Chaves, who's 6-0. Currently, they got it. Sofia Montenegro -180. The comeback on Chaves is +155. So Sofia's 26, Jeisla is 28. Sofia's an inch shorter at 5'6". We're currently unaware what their records are, and this is Brazil versus Argentina. So, anytime you get Brazil versus Argentina, there's a lot of pride on the line. There's a lot of bragging rights. And you know that these two want to come out here, not just win the fight, but get their contracts. Now, unfortunately, I don't want to be too harsh on these two, but I think that they're kind of a bit on the greener side. And I'm not exactly sure how their skills are going to translate if they get to the UFC. I mean, you're going to have to take them very, very slow. Because on one side, you got Montenegro, and man, she's an aggressive Argentinian fighter. And she used to just come out there and bomb on girls, but actually she ended up getting caught in one of her fights. She ended up getting knocked out in 10 seconds by a fighter who's currently 4-7. But since that point, look, it was a super embarrassing loss. But since that point, she's kind of toned down the aggression a bit, and she's gotten a lot more technical. She's evolved. Now she walks people down with a purpose and with a mission. And in my opinion, I think she's gotten a little bit too patient in a way, because like there's been some fights where I'm like, okay, you got this opponent hurt. Let's go ahead and take him out. Like there's one where she chopped this girl down with big leg kicks. And it's like, hey, you go upstairs and the fight could be over shortly after. And it's like, you're clearly winning. You're clearly walking this girl down. But the lack of finishing instinct, it's kind of worrisome. But you could say the same thing on the other side. But before we get to the other side, let's look at these Sofia highlights, man. Look, she's got a presence about her. She's mean. She can bang in the pocket. She's got decent striking, decent Muay Thai. I don't know much about her ground game. I mean, I know you see some clips here. She got a heel hook. She does some ground and pound. But, like, look, that's the clip there where she got caught. She just ran at the girl, and then immediately she got stopped. But since that point, she's been going out there, and she's been doing her thing. And it's always awesome when you see these ladies get these kind of stoppages. But in her most recent fight, and this is it right here, where she hurt this girl badly with the leg kicks. I'm talking like look, the girl's like limping all over the place. You think like, hey, will you go upstairs to one of these and you're going to finish this fight? And I'm surprised she couldn't finish that fight. I really am. But what I do like about her, and I do got to talk about, what I think is going to be the difference here is actually her footwork. So we're going to get into why the footwork is going to be the big key to victory here for Sofia Montenegro. Because on the other side, with Chaves, the unfortunate thing about Chaves is she's never fought anyone with a single win on their record. Look, it's one thing to fight cans. It's important. Everybody on the regional scene fights cans. You know how it goes, man. But, like, I want to know how you treat those cans, right? Are you treating them like Malcolm Wellmaker treated his cans? Or in this case, I have some of the same complaints about Montenegro that I do about Chaves, where it's like, you're doing your thing. You're clearly winning these fights, but, like, I want to see a little more aggression. I want to see some more finishes. I want to see, you really make a statement. But the big issue I have with Chaves is the footwork. I think she's way too flat-footed. And in some of these fights, she's not cutting off the cage properly. She's following her opponents. Also, defensively speaking, I think Montenegro has better defense. Like when Chaves gets attacked, she walks back in a straight line. And against a good opponent, it's going to look awful. It's going to be terrible optics. So let's look at these highlights for Jeisla Chaves. Listen, man, like I said, look, she has been doing her thing. She got this 6-0 record for a reason. But like here, again, she's fighting an opponent who doesn't have a single win on the record. You see how outmatched that opponent is. You're thinking like, hey, you can finish this fight at any point, but it's like, she just doesn't cut off the cage. She follows her opponent. Now, here at the end of the fight, she finally was able to get it down on the ground, get some ground and pound going, and finish the fight. But, man, that fight should have been stopped way before. Not because the ref did something wrong, but because Chaves, it's like I said, she's just following her opponents. She's letting them exit, at different angles and not really capitalizing when she hurts them. Now, eventually, it was almost like a mercy stoppage. She was able to get on top and finish, but now she's actually fighting someone who is a real fighter who isn't just gonna, run away from her and not really fight back like these other girls she's been fighting. This is the first time where someone's actually gonna bring something to the table and throw some heat back at her. And all that being said, yes, Montenegro has actually fought people with, with wins on their record before, but that's not why I'm picking her. The reason why I'm picking Montenegro in this spot is because I think she's a little bit longer. I think she's a little bit cleaner. I think her footwork's a little bit better. And just straight up, just all that aside, I just think that Montenegro right now is the better put together fighter than Chaves. So yeah, I'm not crazy about laying the price, but for that reason, give me Montenegro. Look, she's actually tasted defeat before. That's important to me. She knows what it's like to get embarrassed, have to go back to the drawing board, fix your mistakes, come back, get a win streak. And now it's Chaves' turn to take that first L. I think she'll go back to her regional scene. She'll learn a lot, and she'll be back one day. But Tuesday night, live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm going Sofia Montenegro to get this win. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Brahyan Zurcher, he's 9-0, taking on Murtazali Magomedov, who's also 9-0. Currently, they got it Zurcher minus 125. The comeback on Magomedov is plus 105. Zurcher's 29, Magomedov's 26. Both men are listed at 5'9", but I actually think Magomedov is taller than Zurcher, and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage in this spot. So this is a hell of a matchup. This might be the best fight on this episode of Contender Series. And when you're talking about this kid Magomedov, man, I would describe him as a Terminator. Like when you think of guys with the last name Magomedov, you think of grinders, you think of relentless takedown attempts, a little Russian coasting on the feet. Interestingly enough, with this kid Magomedov, he's never been the distance before. He's finished all 9 of his wins. And man, he is tough as nails. When you talk about this dude, Magomedov, you're talking about a guy who fights with a lot of confidence and with a serious will to win. When he gets you in that Muay Thai clinch, he's got devastating knees, but also he's opportunistic off his back. Look at that triangle. And he had to go through some stuff in that fight before he got it. As you know, just like with any Magomedov, this guy can chain together his takedowns, but look at that step through knee. And that's in a fight where he actually got dropped in that fight. He had to overcome adversity, and boy, did he do so. And just like, with any guy named Magomedov, he's got all kinds of takedown attacks. And if you take him down, I mean, he's going to be attacking for stuff off his back as well. So this is a well-rounded individual who's dangerous anywhere the fight goes. And if you start to gas out on a guy like Murtazali Magomedov, you're going to get finished because this guy is ready to go bell to bell, balls to the wall. So like I mentioned, in his most recent fight against Brito, he actually got dropped hard in that first round. And he comes back, he overcomes the adversity, and then he floors the guy with a step through knee and finishes the fight. A couple fights ago, he was getting taken down left, right, and center. Now, his initial takedown defense is on point. He's got a disgusting wizard, a good wide base, a nice sprawl. But eventually, he started giving up the takedowns as he got a little bit more tired. But you're not safe there either because he's finished fights via triangle. He's finished fights via armbar. So no matter where you take this guy, he always has an answer. And once again, if you slow down against a guy like Magomedov, he's going to go ahead and finish the fight. So he's a very tough out. Now, on the other side with Brahyan Zurcher, I like him a lot. This is a tough Mexican warrior who is kind of a specialist on the mat. His ground and pound is absolutely devastating. This is a dude, he's kind of short, he's stocky, he's a little bulldog. But man, when he gets on top of these guys, wait till you see this ground and pound. But also, don't sleep on his stand-up either. I mean, I know he's not known for his stand-up, but make no mistake about it, he can stand too. He'll wing some overhand, some big knees. And listen, man, if you're not quite ready to stand with a guy like that, he's definitely going to have something for you there. But what he's really known for is that level change. And when he gets on top of these guys, he has absolutely vicious ground and pound. And I heard that the last 8 weeks, he's been training with Islam and Habib. You'd think the guy named Magomedov was the one who went to Dagestan 8 weeks and forget. No, it was the Mexican Zurcher who was out there in the mountains of Dagestan working on all parts of his game. And I think that's going to be very, very beneficial to him. Now, listen, I've seen spots where guys have gone to Dagestan, and it didn't help. Y'all remember that Ebo Aslan fight against Billy Alicana a couple months ago? Like, he goes to Dagestan 8 weeks and forget how to fight. But I think in Zurcher's case, I don't think he's going to forget how to fight. If anything, I think that, training with the Islams and the Habibs is just going to help his game develop to that next level. Now, as far as how these two match up, this is going to be a serious fight, but I kind of lean towards the physicality of Zurcher. I think he's going to dictate the pace. I do think he's going to be able to take down Magomedov, which I know sounds crazy, but is he going to be able to finish him? Probably not. I mean, Magomedov is so tough. And then the thing there with Zurcher is if you let off the gas at all against Magomedov, like let's say you win those first 2 rounds and you're trying to coast in that 3rd round, do not coast in that 3rd round. Because like I said at the very beginning of this breakdown, Magomedov is like the Terminator. And if he senses that, you're huffing and puffing, you're running out of gas, you're, trying to coast that last round, he's going to go ahead and finish the deal. So Zurcher's got to be on top of things. This is a hell of a fight. I am leaning a little bit towards Zurcher here. Like, I'm a big fan of both these guys, and you can make an argument that both of them belong in the UFC right now. It's just that I've seen a certain kind of dominance from Zurcher when he's able to get on top of these guys that I really like and I really think is going to translate at the UFC level. But again, Magomedov, you can't count him out. He's got the heart of a lion, and he really, really is a tough out. So I expect to hear from him soon for sure. But I'm going to lean a little bit towards Zurcher to come out here, get this one done, and probably get a UFC contract. Featured bout in the middleweight division. We got a matchup between Dani Barbir, he's 7-0, taking on Mantas Kondratavicius, who's 7-1. Currently, they got it Mantas -125. The comeback on Dani Barbir is +105. So Dani is 28, Mantas is 26. Dani's 6'4", Mantas is 6'2", and Dani's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage at 79 inches of reach. So hell of a fight for the featured bout, and this should be all-out violence. I mean, when you're talking about this kid, Dani Barbir, he's a guy that fights with a lot of pride. He goes forward. He tries to take his opponents out. He's athletic. He's well-rounded, and he's really, really fun to watch, man. He can mix it up, the punches to the kicks to the takedowns, and he's got this one knockout where he front kicked the dude in the face and sent him flying. Man, I like a lot of things about this dude, Dani Barbir. Flying knees, and he will just put it on you. Look at that front kick, man. I mean, that was devastating. And some jiu-jitsu too, a nice little arm triangle. I have no idea how they didn't stop that fight. So he was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to stop pounding this guy out, and I'm going to go ahead and submit him. But look, he's good everywhere the fight goes, man. Ground and pound, striking, like no matter what. Yo, look at that dude being carried out in a stretcher right behind him. That's wild to me. I got to talk about that for a second. But look, some spin kicks, tie clinch knees. There truly is a lot to like about Dani Barbir in this spot. Now, y'all saw that dude being carried out in a stretcher behind him. That's kind of messed up, because if y'all have ever been to a local show before, you know that there's only one ambulance at the local show, right? And if someone gets carried out in the stretcher and they got to get taken to the hospital, the show is not allowed to resume until the ambulance comes back. So that's wild that they were carrying out a dude in a stretcher and letting this fight happen, and his opponent could have potentially needed the stretcher and the ambulance. And it's like, sorry, man, you're going to have to wait till that ambulance comes back. But listen, man, the one thing I got to give Barbir a little bit of criticism for is his striking defense in the pocket. Sometimes he's a little bit overconfident in his chin. He gets carried away. He likes to brawl, and he's eating some unnecessary shots. And the reason I got to bring that up is because on the other side here with Mantas, this guy's a serious kickboxer, man. Like, I'm not saying serious as in, Alex Pereira, double glory champ or anything like that, but this guy's definitely coming in here with a striking background. He's imposing, he's big, he's confident, and he's gotten a lot better. He has gotten submitted in one of his fights, like most kickboxers tend to do, when they get taken down. But this guy has patched things up, and look at that straight right, man. I mean, that was like a gunshot went off. He destroyed that dude. And this dude is very, very exciting to watch. He can mix up the speeds, flying knees, body shots. And I feel like his development and his maturation, and you're right there, you see he gets tapped out. Hey, that happens to every kickboxer when they start out their career and they hit the mat. But look at these tie clinch knees. Like, this dude gets aggressive and he feels like he's got you hurt. he will not hesitate to go for the finish. And look at that. I love the kind of slow punches upstairs and then the big body rips. But y'all got to watch that fight back, because that fight he had with that Jack dude, that was like the Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonner of whatever their regional scene is. That was a hell of a fight. But since then, I feel like he's cleaned stuff up a lot more. And he's a problem, man. He's dangerous. So this is a hell of a matchup. And actually, the odds have flipped. So Barbir opened up as the favorite. Now, Kondratavicius is the favorite. So a lot of action's been coming in on him. Look, I get it in the sense that Barbir does have some liabilities, you know, with his striking defense, especially his head striking defense. And that's something that Kondratavicius can definitely capitalize on. And I would not be surprised if Mantas came out here and got a knockout. But that being said, I just think that Barbir has too many paths to victory. He's the more well-rounded guy. And when you see the guy who he can win on the feet, now don't get me wrong, that's not the ideal path to victory, but he can win on the feet. He can also win on the mat. And I feel like having multiple paths to victory in this spot, just being the more complete MMA fighter here, I actually think Barbir should be the favorite in this spot. So while I respect the line move, I'm going to go on the opposite of that and pick the underdog in the spot. And I'm going to take Danny Barbir to come out here, win his Contender Series fight. And I think Dana's going to be like, hey, Danny, you're right up my alley, kid. Get your ass over here. You're in the UFC. Now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch for Dana White's Contender Series Week 7. So, my friends, what is the fight to watch for Week 7? I think that the fight to watch is definitely Zurcher versus Magomedov. You got two undefeated prospects, both 9-0 to be exact. Someone's O has got to go. Both these guys are consummate winners, not just for the undefeated records, but the way that they approach things. I mean, you got Zurcher going to Dagestan 8 weeks and forget. You love to see it. You got Magomedov, who you might be beating him early, but he will absolutely put it on you late. This guy's a zombie. This guy's a Terminator. And Zurcher, it's like, hey, Mexico, we have a Habib, you know? So for that reason, Zurcher versus Magomedov is my fight to watch. Now we got to talk about the fighter to watch for Dana White's Contender Series Week 7. So who is the fighter to watch? So I thought it was a little bit tough to pick. You know, it came down between the featured bout and the co-main event. You know, I love the Zurcher fight against Magomedov, but in the main event, I think I'm going to have to go with the opposite of everyone, and I'm going to actually pick Danny Barbir to be my fighter to watch. Listen, I know a lot of heavy actions come in against him. A lot of people are steaming Mantas, and I think Mantas looks good too. But, man, Danny Barbir has some nasty highlights, big finishes. He's well-rounded. I think he's earned this opportunity, and he stood out. So, for that reason, Danny Barbir is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down this Tuesday night live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. I want to thank y'all so much for all your support. Hey, y'all got me to 9K subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. Once we hit 10K subscribers, I'm going to be giving out some free signed Malcolm Wellmaker merch. Also, a lot of y'all have only heard of me from these Contender Series breakdowns, which I sincerely appreciate, but I want to let y'all know that I also break down UFC cards too, and I have been for a long time. So make sure y'all check out my UFC breakdowns, because on Wednesday, I'm dropping my UFC Perth breakdown, you know, Olberg versus Reyes. So make sure y'all check that out. Smash that like button. Leave me a comment. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share if you feel so inclined. I'm truly grateful for all your support. Look, I know last week didn't go my way in Contender Series and in UFC, but it is what it is, man. When you're out here giving predictions every single week, every single month, every single year, you know, from time to time, shit's not going to go your way. Last week didn't go my way, but I'm hoping this week goes my way. So I want to thank y'all so much for your support. Sincerely appreciate it. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.